Let's talk again about those peaches that we talked about when we talked about product and packaging. This time we're going to talk about distribution. Here's that jar of peaches again. Um, and I want to talk about how a jar of peaches like this would be distributed. Um, Obviously, you know where you would find a jar of peaches like this. A jar of peaches is typically a little more expensive than a can of peaches, unless it's a large can. But this jar would have to be packaged, for one thing, in a different way when it's put on a truck. Don't you think that it would require some padding around it? You wouldn't be able to just take a stack of cans and just, I'm sorry, you wouldn't be able to take a bunch of jars and just shove them in a box because they might break. With a product like this, you'd need a box that had separators in it so that the glass wouldn't clang into each other. Whereas cans, you could just all put them in a box side by side and not worry about them bumping into each other because they wouldn't be broken. So that would affect the distribution decision. You might think about that a retailer would probably want to think long and hard about getting carrying jarred fruit over canned fruit, especially if they had limited shelf space. If you drop a can, it gets dented. You can stick it in the sale bin. If you drop a jar of peaches, or if a customer drops one, you need to call the cleanup guys, and the sale is over. So, as a matter of fact, you have no sale. So that's something to think about when it comes to how you would actually literally ship a product like this. We could talk about other products, perishables. If you think about fresh peaches, for instance, you would consider that that they would require, maybe depending on how far they went, they might be shipped on a high-speed train. They might even be shipped on an airplane if they had a long ways to go and you wanted them to be super fresh. I also wanted to talk about this kind of peaches. Obviously, we're not going to talk about packaging, but this obviously is packaged in a single serve. So that if a company wanted to sell these individually. Notice that this one is not labeled. Remember how we talked about labeling and packaging? This one's not what we would call labeled for individual resale. And so because of that, it would have to be, if the company wanted to have a different kind of distribution, I mean, you all know this comes in a package of 4 with a wrap around it that has all the calorie and labeling and dole and all that kind of information on it. But if a company wanted to distribute this as an individual, again, that's a product decision. But if they wanted to label this and sell it separately, they would have to think about how they would sell it, how they would display it, for instance, to the customer. Would it be in a box and tilted up so you could see the little bowls of fruit? Would it be the kind of thing that you'd make sure was always on the counter at the 7-Eleven or at any other type of convenience place where someone would pick up a bowl like this? Would you then also, if you wanted to distribute this as a one serving item, would you also package it so that it has a spoon with it? So even when you think about distributing a product, moving the product from the manufacturing plant to the retailer, you're thinking about product. You have to think about how it's packaged, how it's going to actually look, so that the way you package the product and the way you put it together, the way you box it, will impact how it's ultimately displayed to the customer and what kind of sales you get. I'm going to move away from peaches. I don't want to bore you too long with peaches, but I pulled these out of my pantry. Let me see if I can get them on the camera here. These are Nabisco 100 calorie. You can see that on their big label. But they're these cakesters, these little miniature Oreo cakesters. So they're like little Oreos, but they're like gushy. It's kind of a legend about how much I dislike Oreos. And I don't eat these either. I have kids, so they eat them. But what I wanted to talk about was that Has 5 packages in it. So this obviously is designed to be, let me see if I can get it open. Oh, this one's never been open. That's a miracle. This one was designed to be sold as a box. Obviously, that's how I bought it. Actually, it was being discontinued at the Kroger. I don't know why they weren't going to be carrying it anymore. But as it so happens, this item, as we were talking about before, is actually labeled. So it could be sold individually. And so it could actually be sold, for 50 cents or something. And, one box like this is like almost $3, which is ridiculous. But anyway, this might be sold for 79 cents, 99 cents or whatever by the display case in the candy section at the cash register, if you would. So if this were intended to be sold individually, let me just go back to this thing. Now, here's a box. This is designed to be sold as a box of 5 packs. It's priced that way. It's labeled that way. It has little scan things on it. This actually has a barcode on it, so it could be scanned. But it would have to be in the store's computer so that they could scan it that way. But let's say you are a 7-Eleven and you're not going to sell boxes like this. And it's just not going to happen very often. So you want them this way. Well, what's the marketer going to do? Are they going to send a bunch of little boxes like this and waste all this packaging? Is the retailer going to want to spend money on all this packaging and that they're going to throw away? No, they're going to get giant boxes, that hold 50 of these. And so again, that's a distribution decision. It's not when we talk about distribution, you think about that it's not just sticking it on a truck or a rail car or an airplane. It's also about how you're going to display it and get it into the hands of the consumer. And if you think about those things, you also can think about how things would be priced. Think about, I told you this was almost $3. You might sell this at the 7-Eleven for 79 cents. And so all of those things come into play. We're just going to talk about, we've just been talking about distribution, but our chapter is also about pricing. But I want you to think about how product decisions are made with the specific intent of the various ways that distribution is going to take place for that product.